Welcome to the All In Podcast, the show that explores how the top real estate entrepreneurs have gone all in on their businesses. I'm your host, David Morse, with my co-host, Joe Quattrucci, and I invite you to come along with us as we explore the stories of the most elite professionals in the game today to learn how they went all in and how you and I can do the same. So I just have to ask, are you all in? Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I'm your host, David Morse.
And I'm Joe Quattrucci.
And we have an awesome show for you today with a local investor. Can I call you an icon, Zach?
I don't like any of those
Okay,
accolades. Just call me
all
Zach.
right. Just Zach. All right. Zacharys. And Joe?
Zach, start us off by telling us a little bit, just kind of give us an overview of who you are and what business you're in.
Sure. Appreciate the opportunity, guys. Great to be here. I love your brokerage, love the energy. I've done a lot of business with a lot of your local guys here on your team, so it's good to get this intimate environment going, and again, appreciate the opportunity. So I'm a Detroit guy, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, working the farms, not literally, but you get the point, hardworking. Came out to Arizona in 2002. I'm in the real estate business. I'm licensed, which I think is huge. I'm all about vertical integration. So I always stress for everybody to get that license. You can cut your cost of goods sold. I mainly just buy and sell for my own portfolio. As I started, I did ancillary representation for friends and family just to build some short-term income to help with my fix and flips and the buy and hold strategy. But again, today marks my 18-year anniversary, literally August 5th, 2002. Crazy coincidence. I came out here, remember, America West Flight 5, and started my journey in real estate, not knowing anybody, not knowing really anything in Arizona, not having any background in real estate to where I'm at today, and we'll go through kind of that story. So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a real estate investor. I'm huge in the buy and hold and the fix and flip game here in Arizona.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
I wish we could say that we planned that. We didn't, but but we'll get you a gift. All right.
No gifts necessary.
So tell us, Zach, before real estate, what were you doing, and why? Like, what was that inflection point in your life and career to move you into real estate?
Crazy story. So coming out of college, I went to business school at Indiana, again from the Midwest. Always had aspirations. I grew up socialized in an entrepreneurial environment. My father had a law firm. My grandfathers both had a scrap business and then a real estate kind of development company. So I had small exposure about, entrepreneurial endeavors and working for yourself. So kind of had that mindset. Definitely didn't want to take over my father's law firm. And moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I was recruited by some Ivy League guys, one of the only non-Ivy League employees of a company, to work for a startup company, a B2B in Atlanta, Georgia. Because at the time, the dot-com era was extremely, exciting, and it elicited just crazy thoughts of retirement early with the dot-com stuff and the stock. So I was lured down there. My older sister lived in Atlanta, so did that for about a year and a half. We made $28 million. We blew through $28 million in venture capital. Our revenue was from our vending machines. The timing was off, but you learned a lot from those environments. They're extremely volatile, but you think, oh my God, this is going to be my ride. And of course it wasn't. Gave you some small exposure to, the dot-com stuff. And then I worked for a human capital consulting company, Spherion, where I was a boss at 21 years old to like 55-year-olds, 60-year-olds, and they just didn't love the fact that I'm telling them what to do, which I totally understand. And so I was taking some time off. I was going to start my own consulting financial company and decided to move to Australia for 6 months to kind of get everything ready to go. So as a young kid, you had that opportunity. Went out there with a backpack and no true game plan, but just kind of stepping back from things. And then my cousins, who had a big real estate company in St. Louis, sent a message, hey, are you interested in coming out to the Southwest and kind of, getting in some real estate deals? They knew that I spoke Spanish, I had a finance background. I was a perfect kind of synergy for what they were doing in the Midwest. And I said, talk to me about the opportunity. What does it look like? When I looked at the numbers, I said, I'm ready to come back and ready to get this thing going. They targeted the Southwest as a great opportunity, zone to come out and penetrate that market, utilizing their capital, my human capital, putting that synergy together and starting from there in 2002.
So you did still go to Australia, though?
Absolutely.
Still
went to Australia for 6 months, lived on the beach, surfed. I was building my game plan. I'm always open, networking, thinking about things, but I believe in, serendipity and timing. It was just amazing that, hey, they were looking for presence out here. They had capital. I had some, basic financial experience, but no real estate experience other than watching my grandpa a couple days, go to his developments or retirement homes, but I had zero experience at all. So hopped on a plane again, August 5th, Started school the next day, knew nobody, started networking, and 9 days got my license, started hitting the street and started building one home at a time on the flip side.
Fast mover.
Impressive.
I like that.
Wasted no time. Literally, I remember going to school, I think on the 15th or something, we can pull up my license. Literally got my license in night. People are like, "You got your license?" I said, "Yeah, I'm already ready to go." And I think 5 days later, I sold the first house. I sat in an open house and some Spanish. I remember, this is a crazy story. So I'm sitting outside and it's super hot, as you know, it's mid-August 2002. I'm outside this house in Maryville on 65th Avenue, and this family comes up, and I had lived in Spain, so I speak Spanish. And of course, the Spanish and Latino, Mexican Spanish is different. So I said to the lady, I don't know if we want to put it in here, but it's interesting. I said, "Oh, estoy bien caliente esperándote afuera de la casa," which means that I'm really horny waiting for you outside the house. And she's like, "Como?" And I'm like, what I meant to say is, "It's really hot outside, nice to see you." And she's like, moral of the story is, she forgave me, I apologize. I didn't mean that I was super horny for her and the family waiting for them. We ended up executing a contract, and I sold them the house and did it in Spanish, which was crazy, and literally 2 weeks within, coming out here. So it was nuts.
That's amazing. So, I mean, already everyone should be getting this this picture of you, Zach, that you just jump in. You even said it. I mean, you look for opportunity, it made sense, and you just decided to jump all in.
Right. So what did that first year actually look like for you? You just got your real estate license.
Yeah.
You don't actually have any real estate background.
Right.
You're in a new state with a new group of people. Talk to us a little bit about that first year, some of the challenges and some of the victories that you experienced.
Yeah. I'm all about, in terms of mindset, getting yourself uncomfortable. If everyone's comfortable, you're staying in your circle, your friends, you're not taking action, you're not growing. So I'm all about getting outside your comfort zone. I've done Ironmans. I've done a lot of different things, the craziest competitive type things you can do, because I'm all about getting uncomfortable to get comfortable. So when I moved out here, I knew I was doing the right thing because it was uncomfortable. Get your license, that's pretty comfortable, pretty basic. But then I had to step into the field and start developing relationships, strategic relationships, looking for wholesalers, agents, networking, making the calls. And literally what I did was, instead of sitting behind a computer, and again, it was totally different in 2002 than it is now with technology, making calls and texting. Shoot, I mean, back then, I don't know, they didn't have Instagram, they had, I think, maybe Facebook, but I remember calling on the newspaper for deals, distressed real estate, literally where people got the newspaper back in I'm dating myself, and making the call saying, "Hey, I see this home is for sale, what's the deal?" And then also simultaneously leveraging the license to learn the comps and just talking to other agents in the brokerage. I think I signed up with Remax right out of the gate. So it was a, well-known brokerage, just to pick people's brains and also head in the field to find crews, look at the assets, and build it literally one home at a time. I remember my first deal on Rozier in South Phoenix, $60-some thousand. There was a bum living it, building a bonfire in there, and I was like, I'll take the deal. And I think I made 10 or 15,000 on that first flip. And again, it escalates. You have to take action and movement in order to continue kind of that spiral and that energy to derive more deals and build further relationships. Yeah.
Extremely important. And on that first deal, so let's dive into the first deal a little bit, because take us through. I think a lot of investors or investor wannabes, they spend so much time in the getting ready stage, and they know they want to do it. They believe they want to do it. They know that investing in real estate is a path to wealth, and yet they don't act on that first deal. What was different for you in taking that plunge? A bum building a bonfire in a house.
Sure.
And you said, "Yeah, I'll take it."
Well, I was at a strategic advantage in the sense that I had money behind me. So a lot of times people get analysis paralysis, and a lot of what I teach is really just getting comfortable going through the process of underwriting so that when a deal hits you in the face, you're ready to execute. Again, one of your team members, again, just speaking prior to this, they called me on a deal. You have to be ready, willing, and able to execute and getting comfortable. So a lot of times, if you haven't gone through the process or do your underwriting or deal simulation, I call it, then you're too fearful to take that step. So it's like going in, I use the analogy, you wouldn't just go into a casino and step down at a blackjack table without ever practicing with your friends for free, or maybe playing for $1 a hand or 50 cents or whatever it is. So you're going to look at it, you're going to study about it, and then you're going to play some simulated games. Then, once you've done the simulation, you're going to go into the casino and you're ready to play for real money because you understand it. So a lot of people kind of talk about it, they get excited, but they're not putting in the time and the energy. I was out there putting in the time and the energy and understanding it, and also networking with other agents and following other people's deals, so I felt comfortable moving forward. So it's easy to kind of, sit on the sidelines or look at a peripheral level, but I wanted to really just jump into it. I also was about buying low risk deals. I'm not out there buying $500,000, $1 million deals. A $65,000 deal was low risk. So I'm all about looking at not necessarily upside potential, but what's the downside risk of the deal. I also had the ability of the cousins and the people who were funding the deal to also kind of help underwrite and look and say, yeah, the numbers seem to make sense based on what you're conveying to us, because I'm boots on the ground. So I had the ability to leverage their expertise as well as me just kind of hustling to get that done. So other people, everyone's in a different, predicament and situation and different bottlenecks. Like I use the analogy of an Ironman. Everyone's at a different part in the race. You could be on the swim, Ben Affleck over here, you're on the run and I'm on the bike, So that's how it is.
I love the way that you're using these analogies. It's really bringing this story together. And specifically, I love the analogy you just gave about playing blackjack in a casino. And it's exactly right. I always encourage agents when they come to me and they say they want to learn how to start investing. Number one, you've got to seek the knowledge and the information. And to exactly your point, a lot of that's going to be found in the networking that you do.
Right.
Who are you surrounding yourself by? Real estate agents, other investors, lenders, hard money, private money, all these different things. And then actually getting yourself involved when it's for practice, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then when that deal comes along, you're ready to pull the trigger.
Absolutely. So you got to get comfortable, 1,000%.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious to know what does the evolution look like now over almost 2 decades of that first flip back in 2002 to what you're doing now? How has your company's strategy evolved or changed? What does your business look like now?
Yeah, totally different. So in the beginning, it was all about the flip model, right? So utilizing OPM, other people's money, and the cousin's money. They didn't have a hold strategy. It was always let's get in, let's get out, let's mitigate market risk. And as it ramped up to 2008 when our market imploded, and then I sat on the sidelines for a year and a half and kind of traveled and put everything together, I realized that in the past, you're only as good as your last deal. So I wanted to do something to create a legacy, and I also wanted that passive income. So in the wholesale business, again, you're only as good as the last deal. Fix and flip, you're only as good as the last deal. Your money's not necessarily working for you. You have that income, and you're not bankable that way. So I want to find a way to build serious assets, hopefully get some appreciation on there, leverage the depreciation on the model, but also know that I can go travel the world and have my money working for me with complete control. So I didn't mention before, but I used to work on Wall Street, had internships there looking at wealth preservation. So I have that mindset of not necessarily trying to make zillions of dollars, but also how do we protect the wealth that we accumulate. So it's always kind of been my model. Everyone, again, is looking for these home run deals. I'm always looking for singles and how to cut the fat. So again, in the beginning it was fix and flip, and now it's all about, hey, can I find assets that I can stabilize, buy and hold, and then leverage, utilizing strategic leverage from local banks and those relationships that you spoke about to continue to grow and build my model.
Wow, a lot there. And just one thing I really want to pick up on is you made the comparison between when you're in the fix and flip business, you're really trading your time for money.
Yep.
Right? You're out there, you're grinding, you're doing a deal, and as soon as that deal's done, you collect your paycheck, and that's it.
Correct.
And obviously the difference between buying and holding, and you mentioned a few things that I want to make sure our listeners pick up on. There's a lot more to a long-term asset than just the monthly passive income that we all think about.
Yep.
You mentioned appreciation.
Yep.
So depending on how much money you put into the deal, the entire asset value is appreciating somewhere in the 3 to 5% range every single year.
Potentially. I like to just use, so it's interesting, being highly conservative, I utilize zero appreciation factor on my model. A lot of people, what I call wind at your back, buy into that appreciation model. I buy in today's value, and I assume it's going to be stagnant. I hope for appreciation, but I don't factor it in my model because otherwise it'll skew the numbers.
Smart.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah,
so your whole deal simulation is based off zero appreciation. So
Correct.
you're really, it's really about the cash flow.
Right. So I use cash on cash returns. So I'm on the projections and my analysis, it's always based on cash. If I'm deploying $200,000 in cash and I can rent the asset, for example, $1,500 a month, my gross yield will be 9%. That, of course, is not net. That's before taxes, vacancy, overhead, etc. So that's what I look at. If you bring leverage into the equation, you're almost going to be convinced, because right now we're looking at 30-year lows. Most people are going to say, oh my God, I'm going to buy everything. But that's a poor decision, because you're going to get much better deals by being patient, utilizing the cash on cash business model, than utilizing just leverage to underwrite. Because again, if you can borrow at 3 and even get a 6, you say buy the deal, and there's probably no equity in there. So not only do I buy cash on cash, I won't buy the deal unless there's still at least 10 or 15% minimum equity after I remodel and stabilize that asset. So I'm very very, very conservative. I've been through the volatility in the markets. Remember, I've been through a crash. I'm still here and I have all those strategic relationships. So that is extremely instrumental when people want to build from the ground floor. I call it the foundation of their success, obviously, to be highly conservative. So many people, again, are using the wind, they're using these projections, and they're just trying to say, encourage themselves to buy the deal to buy the deal. I'm not about buying. I'd rather have someone sit on the sidelines than just be overly aggressive to just buy a deal.
So what I just heard you say there is you're using 10%, you expect to see 10 or 15% equity after the remodel, which means you're taking the fair market value of that asset, reducing it by 10 to 15%, then subtracting from that any renovation costs that you're going to immediately incur, and that's your bottom line purchase price.
We got a genius here. That's exactly right.
and then to add on to that, what I like to hear you saying is, even though you know that appreciation likely is going to happen, and that passive income, you're not going to plan it as part of your deal. And that also, I assume that also goes for, depreciation is another thing that long-term real estate investors can take advantage of, right, as well as any other additional tax advantages.
So that's a great point. So when you talk about my transition, this is key. I learned and speak to my tax advisor. I'm flipping. And if you make 10 or 50, let's just use the example, you're making $20,000 a flip, right? 10% on a $200,000 flip. I won't do a deal unless I can conservatively make 10%. So I'm flipping a $200,000 home, I make 20. I don't really make 20, I make 12 because I'm paying 40% in capital gains.
Right.
I never fully want a taxation, implication to dictate my full business strategy, but it kind of has to because I'm tired of paying 40% in terms of short capital gains when I can stabilize the asset, pledge it to a bank, refi it out, get some great income, and then basically utilize almost those same dollars by buying with equity still strategically in the deal. I'm basically recycling those same entry-level dollars because I'm buying very strategically.
Right. The classic BRRRR method for anybody that doesn't know. Buy, renovate, rent, refi, repeat. Rinse, repeat.
That's the big acronym these days. Are you doing the BRRRR strategy? BRRRR?
Right.
Yes, you could call it that. That's correct.
As a guy in the business for 20 years, I imagine you've probably seen a lot of those acronyms.
Yeah, I've got them all. Yeah,
definitely. All right, so there's been so much good stuff already. So you're buying and holding now. Take us through your portfolio. What does that look like right now?
Sure. I'm all about, as I mentioned before, right now it's kind of exciting because I'm doing some higher end stuff. Again, I bought most recently a deal for $650 from you guys, so a perfect example on a golf course in Pinnacle Peak in Scottsdale. This house is going to require $500,000, maybe $550,000 input, basically tearing down virtually the whole house. But I don't recommend that for beginning investors. I'm only used to kind of doing that later on as I've stabilized. I have the annuity of income to support a higher risk type deal. There's a lot of upside potential and there's still limited downside risk on it because the exit on that's probably 1.6, maybe 1.7. So there's still great equity play. But again, I don't recommend that for beginning investors. I'm all about the low income deals. I'm all about what's not sexy. Everybody wants to talk about, oh, you did $1 million deal, you're making all this money. Not really the case. A lot of people, when they're financing those deals, are using high cost of capital, hard money, OPM, and paying out equity percentages. So I'm all about, again, downside risk. So my portfolio is very diversified. A lot of stuff in Phoenix, Glendale, Peoria, entry-level housing, the type of stuff that casts the widest net for the renters, and actually, if it's on the long-term disposition side, it will cast the biggest net for either hedge funds, REITs, and end-user buyers to buy that stuff. So what's sexy to, people, which is the multi-million-dollar homes, I want the unsexy stuff that appeals to the masses because, again, it's a much more liquid product. I know I can stabilize and rent it immediately in the case of a downturn, right? So if you go back to 2008, a lot of people got stuck, and if they would have just stayed the course and serviced the debt, they would have been fine. In fact, they'd still have equity today if they would have sustained those, 10 years of holding instead of panicked and default and hurt their credit. I've never defaulted on anything. I've always stayed the course because I knew that the rents will always support whatever strategic leverage I have. So strategically, again, I like the low income stuff. I know it's not sexy, but that's what pays the bills. No one likes to talk about.
So do you stay primarily in single family residential, or do you get into multifamily and commercial at all?
Right. So I stay in my core competency, which is single family, some small townhomes or condos. I've done some land development deals where I've aggregated 15 acres and sold to builders and things of that nature. I bought an apartment complex of 62 units. And I didn't love the multifamily. I got to be honest. Everyone says your yields are better, your caps are better. I always beg to differ. I think there's great higher rate of appreciation. Again, I don't factor it in, but I just seen it historically. And my yields actually are better in the single family space. I'd rather have single family homes and own the land than have such of non-diverse product of high dense populated, multifamily, because again, it gives me that diversification. If there's one area that gets hit or coronavirus and it knocks out, for example, your entire apartment complex, people leave, I'm stuck. I got all this money in one asset and zero diversification. So having multiple individual units with different families and different people is, worked well for me.
What I think's really neat about that is you kind of just flipped a common objection on its head, because immediately the objection for a lot of people comes, well, you lose your one tenant and there you go. You're out. What you just said is, what if you're not diversified at all and you lose an entire asset, that one asset that you have? Well, I have several hundred assets or dozen assets spread across, and I just think that's a different way of thinking about diversification, because I think everyone immediately goes to the number of units and vacancy. So I just think that's an important concept.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, when you look at multifamily, even today, there's what's called compression in cap rates. So what happens is people, before they're like, well, I'm happy with a 5% return. I tell you, I won't do a deal unless I can make 10. And obviously I'm doing it on the single family. So I'm not just talking about hypothesizing. I'm not saying I'd like to do this. I'm in this thickness every single day in the dirt, and I'm getting 10% yields or 9%. Again, I'll take an 8% yield, for example, on a buy and hold net cap, which is far greater you're going to see in a multifamily. No one's getting 8 caps in multifamily right now.
No, not even close. They're like 3 to 5 caps around here in Phoenix.
And everyone's buying them down with the leverage and whatnot.
Right.
So again, these are unlevered yields that I'm hitting that everyone else can hit too. There's an abundance of opportunity for everybody. It's not like, only a certain people can buy these. Everybody can buy these strategically. So, I'm just an advocate for that.
Let's talk about money for a second. You've talked about, conventional lending, OPM, other people's money, and how you can leverage those different assets. And I know a lot of listeners right now are thinking, I'd love to fix and flip, buy and hold. I just don't have the capital. So work us through, what advice would you give to somebody that's in that position?
Yeah. There's always different barriers to entry and bottlenecks for different people. One thing's first, and I know our listeners mostly are all licensed individuals or brokers, that's a huge strategic advantage. So if you don't have money, it's all about the acquisition. If you have access to the deal, the money always follows the acquisition. If you have a good deal, it's easy to promote that because you can underwrite, you can show the value. So in our circle, our network is our net worth, as we all heard that a million times. So if you're simultaneously out there deal hawking and looking for the acquisitions, and your bottleneck is money, simultaneously, you better be telling people proactively, leveraging your social media, leveraging your sphere of influence, hey, I'm going to get a deal here soon. Who wants to invest in it? And you're going to give you what's called, if you're utilizing the OPM model, I'll put you in a first deed of trust, or we'll do an LLC. There's a million different ways to be transparent and protect that individual or multiple individuals' capital, whether you set up a fund, I had a distress acquisition fund, or you do it on one-off deals with other people's money, or you get hard money. Again, if you get the deal and it's a solid deal and it's a low LTV, the money will always follow. You can immediately go to OPM, or you can certainly go to hard money. I don't love hard money because the clock's ticking, but guess what? If you have a bird in the hand, a great deal, and you're factoring the cost of capital even at 10%, and you can make sense of it and factor it for 6 months when you think you're going to exit at 3, because you always want that cushioning, then guess what? You're still going to make money. So if you have the deal, the money will always follow, but be proactive in finding those sources.
So now let's talk to our more experienced listeners that understand that concept, and that was perfectly well articulated. So if you didn't catch all that, rewind and listen to it again.
I know I speak fast.
No,
I
that's
get
perfect.
excited about
I love
this.
it.
It's all
I love
good.
it. So now let's talk about your strategy around the way that you're holding on to these several hundred units.
Yep.
There typically becomes a point for most investors where their individual ability to get another mortgage stops somewhere around 10 or 12 with conventional financing.
Yep.
So how do you overcome that bridge or overcome that hill where you need to start holding assets long term where you may not necessarily be fundable by a bank personally?
Right. So what happens is I don't use like conventional mortgages. So I'm past. I've got a conventional mortgage, of course, on my primary home because I want the tax write-offs. But what happened was I used the flip strategy from the beginning to create, enough money to buy a couple assets. Okay. And those were owned free and clear through flipping. So utilize that the mentality. So now I have some cash to play with. Call it, a few $100,000. But a few $100,000 in 2009 was amazing because homes you could be bought for $30,000, $40,000, and $50,000.
Right.
$50. Exactly. Just craziness. So the cap rates back then too, by the way, Warren Buffett says when people are fearful, be greedy. When people are greedy, be fearful. There was so much fear in the market, so much fear that the banks wouldn't even lend at the time. So the only model was OPM, hard money, and cash. So I was utilizing the OPM, did enough flips to have my own cash, buy those new units, stabilize them. Instead of getting conventional mortgages, finally I remember the day when a bank named Biltmore Bank, a local bank, which now they've got acquired by another billion-dollar bank, they said, hey, Zach, we see you got a couple assets. I'm like, yeah, how can I help you? They're like, would you like some leverage on those? And I said, Yeah, I've been waiting for leverage for a long time. So instead of pledging them individually, I did what's called a cross-collateralization loan. So I aggregated those homes as a package. I pledged them to the bank in a first deed of trust, and in turn, they gave me a line of credit. Okay, so through that line of credit now, I can capitalize. So they'll loan, let's say, 70% of appraised value. Going back to the point where, hey, if you're buying something, you have that good equity in there, and you could literally rinse and repeat that through the bank, then you can recirculate those dollars multiple times and not get stuck. But there's conditions on that. One, you have to be very transparent in your reporting. A lot of people and landlords make the mistake of collecting cash from tenants. So you're going to get stuck when the bank comes in. They're looking at your tax returns and say, you sure you don't even make any money? So we're going to lend you money, but you don't even have the ability to repay. So it's super important to build your business very transparently, pay your taxes, pay to play to get in the game in order to show up to a bank so that you're bankable. Too many people do it the wrong way and they're hiding income or whatnot. I want to be able to pay my taxes, take that hit, but also be bankable to show that I can support that debt. So I cross-collateralize now of lines of credit to go out and identify new assets. Those new assets are now owned free and clear because I'm capitalizing my line, okay, to go buy those new assets. Those are unencumbered. As I get those stabilized now, I can now take those new ones. Again, I still have equity in there. Stabilize, I got new income coming in through the revenue of those assets and pledge them again to the banks, also supporting that income. So we're growing incrementally. We're growing one brick, one house at a time, but also stabilizing it through that revenue of the rental. So basically, it goes on exponentially because you're building it from the foundation in an extremely strong fashion.
And that's kind of that domino effect, right? Once you get those first 2 or 3 assets that you own free and clear, you can do exactly what you just described.
That's correct. And that's what I'm doing now, and that's the beauty. But one key component is I never forgot about those people. So this is so key, is cultivating and rekindling those relationships. Never forget where you come from. My beginning investors, in fact, I like to tell a story that's important for all agents. I remember doing a cross sell early on in my career, and I remember the agent who I was working with lived in Silverleaf. And anyone in Arizona knows Silverleaf is one of the high net worth communities. And so I simply said to her, didn't know her, was a cross agent. She was the buyer's agent. I was helping my buddy on a deal at Safari. I said, hey, do you know any high net worth individuals? Always ask the question, right? Put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone. Do you know any high net worth people? It's a very simple question. She goes, of course she did. She lives in freaking Silver. If she doesn't, then she's minding her own business and living in a bubble. Right. And I said, oh, why? I said, well, I'm always looking to raise capital for deals. I have some notes that I'm looking to sell because I did some seller finance deals and carrybacks. I wanted that liquidity to redeploy into the acquisitions. She's like, I'm not even sure what you're talking about, but I know a couple people that are looking to invest in real estate. I said, that would be amazing. So I remember 2 days later, I get a call from, hey, I got a call from Michelle. She said, you have some notes. I'm curious, what do you do? So I'm having a conversation. Don't know who I'm talking to, but just kind of going through the routine. And he says, I really like what you're talking about. The guy flies out to Arizona, and this is really key. I'm always authentic, right? You can come, I could have shown up in a suit or whatever. This is me, right? Is you always want to be authentic to yourself. If you're trying to be someone you're not, it's going to come off bad and it's going to come to bite you. I pick up that guy in my Ford Explorer Sport. I like to stay humble and low key. I don't even think I cleaned it. You know, hopefully I showered that morning. But I'm sure that I had literally pop bottles and, you know, comparative market analysis sitting in the car. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, let me throw the stuff in the back. The guy's like, Jesus, this guy's dirty, whatever. Pick him up in the airport. My car had 180,000 miles. I'm frugal. I want to maximize every asset. I drive him around for the whole morning. We're sitting there having lunch at like a $6 taco shop. The guy looks me in the eye, says, I love your mentality. I love your energy. I love what you're doing out here. Not only do I want to buy those notes, I want to invest in your company. And so through that one ask from one call, guy flies out and he's invested millions, his family's invested millions of dollars in my business. And on the fix and flip side, I've also got him some buy and hold assets and made them millions of dollars from one person that I didn't even know. The power of the ask, also being transparent and authentic. Of course, the guy did tons of research on me. I mean, his attorney spent $20,000. Hey, we'd like your DNA. We'd like, you know, everything
blood sample.
which is important too. You always want to investigate. But I never even asked the guy, how much are you worth, whatever. Clearly, if he had the ability to execute, I was hoping he was going to execute because I spent, $10,000 my own attorney's fees with the operating agreements and setting up the structure and the transparency to protect him. So we went through that whole routine, and he's still an important, intricate part of my company today because guess what? No one has unlimited capital. So even I'll still engage and we'll still do fix and flips just to ensure that, hey, if I get a package of 50 homes, I have the ability to take it down. Turns out the guy's probably worth a few $100 million, owns massive companies, and he's like family. And obviously I've made their family millions of dollars. They invite me to their races and whatever, and we are a family through thick and thin. So even when you don't need the money, it's always important to deploy other people's money as well because you never know when that opportunity is going to come. from. So you never forget where you came from and always make sure those people are taken care of.
And the reason we're sitting in this room is because of that authentic, genuine style that comes across in your marketing and everything else that you do. That's what attracted me to you, Zach. And we talked about that a little bit off air. And I love that approach. And there's so many things that you've already said that I think our listeners need to, like, you're hearing this from not someone who's just come on the scene. You're 20 years in this game, right? And you've seen lots of investors come and go. And so to your point about transparency, authenticity, doing things the right way, not sacrificing your long-term plan and vision for your business for a short-term dollar, like do things the right way. That's what's going to sustain you over the long haul. Oh, man.
1,000%.
And I love the technical aspect of this conversation, the information that the agents can use to go out there and actually utilize to get into finding these deals, which leads me to my next question. Bring us through, kind of starting in the very beginning, lead acquisition. I noticed before our interview today, your social media, you're very active on there. Your Instagram account has probably hundreds of posts of live videos and different things that you're working on. How big of an impact does social media have on lead acquisition, and what other levers do you use to find these deals that you're referring to?
Great question. So it's really interesting. You got to pivot in today's market conditions. I utilized zero social media before because it wasn't even an intricate part. It wasn't even an option before Instagram is new and TikTok, which I don't even know. I'm not on TikTok. I don't know about it.
Not yet.
We're going to go find hidden TikTok.
We're going to go. Yeah. So I'm with the Goodwill Hunting boys. We're going to be shooting after this. So that's Kate. There it is. Leo and Ben. Matt and Ben. Okay, cool.
I need to come up with
who's
your celebrity lookalike?
This. I don't know. Maybe would I look like LeBron James?
I think so. Definitely.
So it's in the beginning, again, lead acquisition was I'm calling newspapers, knocking doors, doing the old school things, right? Getting in the field. I think money's made in the field, not in the office. People that think deals are just going to hit them in the face or at the desk, they're mistaken. I think you got to get out there and knock the doors. I was never afraid. Again, it's not super comfortable to knock on the door and say, the beautiful thing is, again, I knew that I was licensed. So every knock, every interaction that you have by leveraging your license, whether it's ancillary income or if you just want to buy and sell for yourself, every person you talk to is either a buyer, seller, or a renter. So every interaction is potential capital. People forget that. I'll knock on a distress door. Hey, I'm here. I own a property down the street. This one looks pretty disheveled. Are you in hardship? Are you interested in selling? Great. What are you looking for? I can help you either way. I'm either happy to buy it or I'll sell it. I call it my two-hat system that I teach agents, right? So you walk in. It's a very visual thing. I would walk in before, and again, I'll transition, but I would do the old school stuff, and then I started spending money on marketing direct to seller. We had a company, even though we were licensed, 1-800-NO-AGENT, where we'd spend money going out and saying, we just want to buy your house. If it happened, they were looking for retail, so I walk out with the premise of, hey, what's your number? Where are we at? Can we create a win-win situation? And you always have to think win-win. If you're the only one coming out of the deal, if it's a zero-sum game, there's only one winner, it's not a good deal. Everybody has to come out ahead. If there's one loser, don't do the deal. It's all about reputation. That's also what helped get me to my level, is making sure that everybody wins, everybody in the transaction. If there's an agent, they're getting paid, we're solving the seller's problem, putting money in their pocket, and you can make your minimum return or whatever that may be. So having that mentality is instrumental. But again, you could pivot. If the seller says, I need to get X, and you're at Y, and it doesn't make sense to say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand consultatively where you're at. I'm going to turn my hat around. I know that I came in today as an investor, but I also want to let you know, which I always fully disclose, I'm also licensed. So I know that I can't buy your house from an investment perspective, but I can list it and we can still achieve this number for you today. And I'm proactive. I'm going to get this done. As you can tell, I'm aggressive. So let's get this document signed. I brought two sets. Either one, I'm buying it, or two, I'm listing it for you. And let me get you your number. And I'm very, very confident we can make that happen in the next 45 days based on today's market conditions. I just need you to sign right here. Go with the assumptive close. And so literally every appointment I went to was either one or the other. Yeah. I'm happy to take 3% of 200,000, or I'm happy to make 20,000. It's still a good day for 45 minutes of my time. So if you're not leveraging that mentality and squeezing the pulp out of every interaction, you're doing something wrong.
I didn't know that I stole the agent investor hat analogy from you, Zach. So now I can actually
everyone can have that. I call it my two-hat system that I teach, but it's a visual thing. And if you're a woman too, you could just show the book. I mean, some people don't like the hats, but show something tangible to just kind of, pivot from the conversation. So I totally understand what you're looking for. Guess what? There's a solution for you. We're just going to go this route. And I brought the paperwork already because I anticipated you may want to go this route. And I just want to show you and do what's best for you. I'm happy to go either way. That's the beauty.
Well, and to that point, for even some of the newer real estate agents out there, even if you're not an active investor who's prepared to buy a flip property, what other real estate agents, what other real estate investors in your area are you networking in, so that when you do approach that home and they don't want to take it to the market, or they can't take it to the market, or time is of the essence, you can reach out to your investor friends and say, and now you either do a wholesale deal or a referral fee or whatever the case is to get that seller, based on their motivation, to an investor that you know that can help them achieve what they need to achieve.
1,000%. So if you're not networking with the other agents and you want to start to get in this game, you're crazy. I think that one of the greatest approaches, again, I have amazing agent relationships because I'm licensed. I have the ability to get my 3%, but I always give it up because I just want the deal. I'm happy to give up 3 to make 10. Too many people are short. Well, I'm licensed. I want my commission. You don't want your commission. You want the deal. So incentivize those agents, give up that 3 to make your 10. I'll do that trade. I'll give you $3 for 10 all day long.
So the more powerful leverage of a license is not necessarily the ability to save commission, while you certainly can do that. It's really about the exposure that you get through being able to network in even more powerful ways with other with other agents who are seeing the deal, which gives you more lead generation exposure.
There's a million different benefits of being licensed. Again, I always look at it. There's some people pass on deals because of what's called their cost of goods sold. Their cost of the deal is too high. So by the time they buy it, they factor outsourcing to an agent. It costs them, 6%. Really, it's, technically 6, but if you're vertically integrated, it only costs you 3. That 3% brings it down to 7%, where I'm still going to get my 10. They pass on the deal, I buy it because I have my license. It's a no-brainer. Additionally, I love just the over-disclosure. I always use the term when in doubt, disclose, common terminology. So when you're in front of anybody and you say, listen, we're held to the highest standards. If Joe Blow investor comes in here, there's no repercussion to them. You can't go to the board and file a grievance or whatever. My reputation is my number one thing. So I'm telling you with my heart, I want to do what's best for you. Let's create a win-win situation, but we're held to the highest standard. And when you look somebody in the eye and you say, I'm a professional licensed agent, they respect that. It puts you on a higher pedestal and you have a greater chance of getting the deal. If your mentality is just acquisitions for your own portfolio, it's a huge differentiating factor for you. If you're not leveraging it and promoting it, you're a fool.
So I want to transition really fast, and I want to bring this conversation to the local greater Phoenix area, and I'm sure there's a lot of markets around the country that are in this similar position where inventory is low, compression rates or cap rates are compressed, value or perceived value of sellers is way up there. What do you say to the investors in markets like that, and in markets like Phoenix, where everything that they're seeing on the MLS and from other wholesalers, the prices just don't make sense in the numbers? Is it a matter of just waiting until the market shifts, or more aggressively finding the off-market deals? What do you say to those people that are looking at, like me, looking at 3 caps on the MLS and saying there's no way I could ever make this deal profitable?
The answer is this. I have not bought an MLS deal in probably over 2 years. So that means if I'm buying 100 deals a year, which I am, you can pull them in the tax records, they're all off market. They're all through strategic relationships, good wholesalers. You need to become the greatest of friends with those wholesalers, make sure they're getting taken care of. Maybe you need to think outside the box. If deal flow is extremely slow, maybe you can cut a deal, for example, thinking outside the box. You bring the wholesaler and give them an additional equity piece of the deal to ensure that you get that deal. So if there's scarcity, what can you do to differentiate yourself from every other buyer? What are you doing different? Why would they want to work with you versus anyone else that has capital? So Mr. and Mrs. Wholesaler, I know you're in a good position, but also I want to do something different. Let me buy this deal, and I'm going to give you a 10% kicker on the back end, and I'll give you all the accounting. But more importantly, I want to get first look at every deal, and we can continue this relationship so that you're getting a little bit fatter and you have an incentive to bring me the deal. And same thing, I don't want to buy MLS deals, so you're going to promote your license and stay within your brokerage, but also go out to the other brokerages. If all the cattle are in one field, there's only a certain amount of food, you better find another field to eat on. So just because you're at one brokerage, start networking with those people, go in and talk to them. And guess what? Maybe what's going to happen when you're running these big brokerages, you're going to start to say, hey, I love what you did. You're going to bring them over to you. If you're building your brokerage or whatever it is, it's that ancillary piece. It's all those relationships that are instrumental. And so again, to answer your previous question, reverting from my marketing strategies, I used to spend a lot of money on marketing direct to seller. I spend $0 now on deal acquisition. So now I've done the online social media stuff, which has been great, but it's all about the reputation. If you're consistently executing, creating win-win situations, fair, you have fun. I mean, some people forget this is a serious business, but you need to come up with the identities. I came in here and I was like, oh, Good Will Hunting. You're always going to remember that. Who's that guy that came on the podcast that says,
right.
We're Good Will Hunting. So be memorable. And I think it's also extremely important to, some people say wholesalers, agents, when you're at the title company, you're signing documents, every single conversation you have, what is the full engagement? How far do you take it? When I sign documents at a title company, I say, hey, I'm the best buyer in town. If you have a deal that falls out of escrow, they're the first ones to know. Can you please let that seller know to call me and keep my name and number? And by the way, title company, I'm happy to host a lunch so that bring in all your investors so that, we can meet and greet. I'll pay for it. I just want to be known and be that go-to guy of the buyer. So think outside the box. Every single person in this business, you need to touch those different points in terms of full engagement and continue conversations. If you're an agent, you're calling on a deal, hi, is this available? Because you're running a comparative analysis for one you're going to buy. Introduce yourself. I'm not calling to buy this, to be honest, but I'd like to know, maybe you work this area full time. Do you ever come across any off-market opportunities? You can represent me. So utilize those touch points as you're doing your due diligence on a deal, especially in an area that you're cultivating and marketing, to push the extremity and build those first-time relationships. Push it. Don't just say, is the home available? Thanks, goodbye. Hey, let me introduce myself. Looks like you're from, where your name, you have an accent from Germany? Oh, that's really cool. How long have you lived there? So many people are just thinking black and white and not looking at the full spectrum. So you have to change your mentality to build and engage these relationships to bring you the deal.
It's that phrase that you said just a few minutes ago, squeeze the pulp out of every interaction. Mm-hmm. That's going to stick with me.
Yes.
Maximize them.
Maximize it.
And the consistent trend that I'm seeing in everything you're saying is is back to why you originally got out of just fix and flip, which is trading the time for the money. And everything you're saying is around building a business.
Yep.
You're building systems. You're building a network. You're building what ends up being consistent deals coming across your desk that you're out there working for.
Yep.
And so just like we would teach any of our agents here at my brokerage, what is your value proposition? What differentiates you from other listing agents or working with buyers? You said, how are you differentiating yourself from every other buyer? Totally. That is a value proposition that you are creating as an investor business. I think that's...
And being authentic to yourself. So when you see somebody out there, it's funny, I see this all the time. People want to duplicate, and it doesn't come off as authentic. Someone's got a funny catch name. Like I call my stuff trash to cash. And I'm like, hey, I'm out here with my trash to cash. It's not as authentic. Be unique, come up with your own stuff that's relative to you. And you don't even, real estate's not a real estate business. It's a relationship business. So create an identity. If I have a guy that I help, his name's Wada Mike, and he's into tacos. All he's posting is food. Now, every time I go on his thing, I'm salivating, but I'm not thinking about real estate, and I want to help the guy. He's got a great taco page. So you don't have to just think, I got to post real estate. Get engaged to your clients. Get to have them know you on a personal level. And I think the biggest mantra to a thing is having fun. Like, I enjoy the camaraderie. Some people, again, I was saying this before, is it's a serious business, but you can have a lot of fun doing it. And if you're too serious, people don't want to do business with you. So what are you doing to have fun or, celebrate the success of your clients or a sale, or go out and, go out for that steak dinner after and bring the wholesaler who brought you that deal and buy him or her a nice steak and celebrate that success, because that's going to want them to do business with you again. Oh, you just took me out for a nice steak dinner? Thank you so much. Who's doing that? You already forgot about them. You're moving on to the next deal. Don't forget about where you got that deal and where you're coming from, so you can rekindle and push those relationships to the furthest level.
Yeah, really great advice. Zach, before we move into the last segment of the show, I'm curious, what's next for you? What do you have your eye on moving forward?
Sure. So through my career, it's been, a wild ride. Again, I've been through the ups and downs with our crash and then building, and a lot of my capital and the houses were done through the downturn of the market, obviously. And obviously now I've got a streamlined business. But I've had a lot of people come to me and ask me about coaching and mentoring. Hey, can I follow you around? I said, you don't just walk into a hospital and you see a surgeon going into surgery and just have the assumption you're going to walk in there and scrub up and watch brain
Right.
surgery. So I've had a lot of asks. And I think about in terms of my legacy, not just leaving my portfolio for, hopefully I'll have kids one day and get married, and that's one of my goals, but really helping and touching and affecting people's lives and positive change, to take the initiative, to get off the sidelines, whether to get their license, get in real estate. So I started a company called the Flip Foundation, where we're literally creating a family of like-minded people to get their licenses, to buy and hold and fix and flip, and kind of really giving back and inspire and create that positivity to everyone across the United States that's interested in this business. So that's kind of my newest venture. It just kind of transpired organically, which I love. It wasn't even my idea, but it kind of culminated, and it makes sense at this juncture. So I'm excited about giving back and engaging these people who've already had a lot of great successes in just a couple weeks. So I'm excited about that, but also just continue to grow my business, stay in the thick and thin. I like being in the heart of it. I wake every day, it's like playing Monopoly with real money and having fun. It's like I have to slap myself and realize like this is real. Like you can pull it up in the tax records, and having fun. I mean, I have amazing relationships with your company and a lot of your agents, and it's just being blessed and, not stressed, and keep moving, keep grinding.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Real life Monopoly. All right, let's let's transition into the last segment of our show. 3, 2, 1, action. The same 3 questions, Zach, that we ask every single guest. Question number 1.
Question number 1, Zach, who is the one person, whether you've met them or not, who has had the most impactful or the most substantial impact on your business?
Good question. And I like to be put on the spot. Probably my grandfather. I just loved his energy, his attitude. He's always joking around. He's passed, so he's got just, I think about him all the time. I visualize him with his checkbook, ready to act. He literally, guy walked around with the checkbook, ready to take action and execute. Like, there's no dress rehearsals. He's like, this is for real. I'm ready to execute. He walked around, he bought businesses in 1 second, and I just loved his mentality, his spirit, his energy was massive, and he just left an amazing, lasting impact. He was a great guy, very charitable, did a lot of great things. So I aspired to kind of live in that legacy.
That's awesome. He was in real estate development.
He had multiple. He was an entrepreneur at heart. Had real estate developments, retirement centers. Did some development work. He didn't do fix and flips and really buy and holds. He did larger developments and things of that nature that I got minimal exposure to as a kid coming around with them. But I can literally just visualize him like quick yes, no. There was not like maybe. Like, you got to be ready to put your foot. So many people are stagnant. You're sitting in neutral, and it's about literally just slowly pushing on that gas and moving forward slowly.
All right, question number 2. What is the single greatest impact? I just asked that wrong. I just screwed up.
We both screwed up the questions today.
We're
on tilt over here.
We're really good. This is live. So what is the most impactful book that you've ever read on your business?
So it's interesting. I'm not a big reader. I'm a doer.
I had a feeling I might get that.
I've said this. So many people talk about, my dad laughs. I think I read the Isaiah Thomas story as a famous basketball player. In fact, he's my friend on Instagram now. And I was just inspired by him. He wanted to be an attorney after he finished playing basketball. Not that he inspired my business at all. He's just a really good, gregarious, outgoing, intelligent guy and a great basketball player. But I'm not really a reader. I'm all of the mindset of just getting out there and doing it and learn by doing. I mean, anyone can sit passively, but I don't take a passive mentality. I'm very proactive and calculated in what I do. So, I've read a few books, but I'm certainly not, I'm partially illiterate probably. I could read financial statements and comparables, and I know how to comp properties.
The important stuff.
I'm just being transparent and vulnerable. I'm not a big reader. A good book actually I'll say was, and it's very simple, that's why I liked it, Big Words and Small, Who Moved My Cheese?
That's a great book.
And so I think it's very relevant with pandemics and shifting mindset and pivoting. So it's very simple, but it's very impactful in terms of what it is. And I like the fact you can read it in a day, but it just stuck with me. Or Sun Tzu.
And if you don't like reading, then just watch the YouTube video. There's a great 5-minute YouTube video on it.
There you go. Exactly.
Synopsizes the whole thing.
Well, and that leads us into our third and final question today, Zach, which is this. Well, before I get to the question, this is the All In Podcast, where we encourage our listeners to go out there and take immediate action right now today. So what is the one bit of advice? What is the one thing that our listeners can go do today to move the needle forward in their business?
Love the question, and I practice what I preach. It's getting uncomfortable, okay? So what I mean by that, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. So if you're constantly doing the same thing all the time, if you go to the gym and you're constantly doing biceps, you're not getting uncomfortable because you're used to that exercise. You're not going to grow. No different than you don't like knocking doors, go knock doors. You haven't put an ask out or defined what your buy box is and you want to get into this business, get yourself out there and get yourself uncomfortable from something that you haven't done. Take that initiative. This morning before I came here, I always like to work out every morning. It sets the tone and the energy for the day. That works for me. Everybody's different. Get uncomfortable. For me, I was sprinting up my driveway, could barely breathe. Literally uncomfortable. What does that mean? I'm sweating profusely. I'm getting literally, physically uncomfortable, and then you get that amazing gratification. If you're not stepping outside your comfort zone, you're not growing. So do things that, again, you can follow. There's a million different ways in real estate to be successful. Follow some of them that you haven't done and start doing it. It's not hard, but it's hard to just get that motivation, have someone maybe hold you accountable as well. So maybe get an accountability partner to say, hey, we want to work out. Hey, we want to knock 15 doors. Hey, we're going to make cold calls. Whatever that is, maybe ask for an accountability partner as well, but just get uncomfortable to get comfortable.
I love that. Such good advice. And honestly, it makes me think of how oftentimes new agents come in and we're setting up their business plan and we say, we might even say to them, what do you enjoy doing? Let's double down on that. When maybe the question ought to be, what do you hate doing? And your success is going to result through that. That's a great answer, Zach. Zach, so much good content in this interview. Where can people find your content and get in touch with you?
Sure. You can go on my, if you do the hashtag trash to cash or ZAK Ventures on YouTube, check it out there. Facebook, Zachary Kepes I think it's under investor. They created that page as we're doing our Flip Foundation. You can check out flipfoundation.com, check out that coaching and that family. But again, there's so many great videos out there. Hopefully people just get inspired, be authentic to what they are, take those steps to get uncomfortable. But I plead with people, just keep moving forward. Action breeds activity and momentum. That momentum breeds deals. I was talking to one of my mentees yesterday and I said, he's doing his first buy and hold. I said, is your sign already outside so you can start getting calls? He's like, well, it's not ready yet. I said, the time is now, right? There's no time like the present. So be proactive and get going, which will resonate with the audience. It's like, you already own the asset. Capitalize on that. Get your sign out the day that you close. What's the worst thing that happens? Someone calls you and it's not ready. You cross-sell them to another one. It's free real estate. If you're selling a $200,000 condo or renting and your sign's out and they call you, what happens? You just made an extra $6,000 from free advertising, which is sweet. So be proactive. Get it out there.
Yeah.
The time is now. Take the action. Get on.
I love it. Zach, thanks so much for hanging out with us for a little bit. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the All In Podcast. As always, go play All In.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the All In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play All In.